The date today, I don't know why I'm starting this like it's a video diary entry. It's more just a general vlog, but you never know when people see clips, so letting everyone know that um, the date and the year of our Lord 2026. I'm just kidding. I am not a Christian, but January 28th, 2026, if we are to follow that calendar, is the time of this log. And there have just been, as you can tell by the bags underneath these eyes and the messiness of the dew, it's been a little bit of a crazy, stressful world, in case anyone needs context for what's going on in this time. The place, the nation state I happen to reside in is the United States, and it is going through a sort of I don't even think pre-fascist. It is just a fascist goon squad, essentially equivalent to the SA, is patrolling U.S. streets, and it's gotten to a point where even in a country undergirded by its two main pillars, which are white supremacy and anti-communism, it is now just going after white liberals, just the people that the image of America was kind of traditionally associated with, just kind of your just bog standard white person generally. That is sort of the U.S. has been, its foundation was as a white settler colony of people that came from Europe and stole the land through mass murder, genocide, ethnic cleansing, and people kind of just act blasé about it and just say get over it. That's only easy for you to say if it didn't happen to you, and you can tell by my appearance that I have very more than likely benefit. I haven't done an Ancestry.com test. I am very likely just related to people that benefited from settler colonialism, potentially labor exploitation through wage slavery over another human being. I was not in a particular region of the country that would rely on another horrifying, barbaric form of labor exploitation, which is just chattel slavery. And those two systems of just accumulation of human misery lining the pockets of a tighter concentration of people owning what is known as capital at that point and wielding it over everybody else, like just using it as a cudgel, essentially banging it over our heads. And we're told that because we get to choose our masters, which we don't really, we are still forced to put on a corporate mask, and essentially it's dressed up in prettier colors, but you're just sort of asked to shuck and jive your way into making somebody else money at the expense of your own time and energy. And they give you a fraction of what you've done for them as far as the value of the commodities that you generate for them, that they pocket the rest for, either for personal income, or they, for the most part, will reinvest it into inputs or the productive process and the machinery associated with it. And rinse and repeat, they'll continue to pump out those commodities that they are not paying you in full for. Otherwise, the only function that they would reasonably be serving is some kind of distribution person, where they should match 1-to-1 the price of their commodity, based on what they would fully be paying to you. Because remember that the reason why they are able to make a killing, oftentimes through killing off of you, is because they are understandably overworking and underpaying you. If everything is run by machines, they reach the self-destructive point where profitability declines because demand has been so annihilated by the inability of the people that they force into wage slavery to afford the products that we made, that we essentially have to buy back from them as a capitalist class. And we don't even get the guaranteed necessities anymore. They're just like, oh, we'll just grab somebody else, just pluck another person from the mass. And at that point, you know, what are you really supposed to do? You just have to, like I said, you put on the mask, you shuck and jive, and you have to put on a show for whoever is going to be what they call hiring you, to make it seem like it's more of a equal contractual negotiation. But there is obviously the entire, let's call it rent, hanging over your head of, if you don't have this, you are not going to be able to eat or have a house or see a doctor in the case of the United States. And if on the other side you have someone that has an entire suite of assets that if they went under, they could just sell off as commodities. They say, oh, I need to work you harder because I'm investing in more machinery to, well, eventually replace your job. And obviously they'll never say that, but that's what it's really for. That's what AI is for. They are not designing it to further human consciousness or the development of just humankind in general. They're doing it because the only logic, the algorithm, is profit. That's the only thing that they understand. They are operating at a callousness that is letting them behave in a manner that, regardless of party affiliation, they are either team fascism with a corporate face, or they're just team fascism with the face of a, I don't know, rabid dog, I guess. But even they are cuter than any fucking MACA mug that anybody's been seeing on the news, because we're just looking at the absolute dregs of humanity right there. Just, that is, I am very glad that people are finally waking up to the fact that, yes, we are living in a police state, and they aren't just going along with it. But that whole very meandering example of seemingly disconnected facts there. Um, Not sure why this turned off, but we'll keep the headphones on because they're cozy. But that would look ridiculous if I just kept the boom down for no reason. But yeah, what people need to understand with some of those distinctions that I was making, such as between chattel slavery and wage slavery, and the corporate progression of fascism versus rabid dog version of fascism, is people are missing there are some people, and more and more they are waking up to it, because there's literally just mountains of video evidence that makes it irrefutable. But it is the entire system of law enforcement that's the problem. It is Minneapolis PD on January 26th was assisting ICE agents with directing tear gas at a local preschool, and were continuing to kick the canisters at the preschool, even as protesters were justifiably throwing them back. And this is a society that I would even say fetishizes children to a sick extent, to prop them up as an image of, oh, we need to always look out for the sake of the children. And I don't know what has happened with that, but it's like, I think there's sort of something dark behind that messaging, because people that are talking about we must protect the children all the time, there is I believe, not to deviate too much into the psychotherapeutic route, but there does appear to be some projection going on there of some sort of fixation that they have on children, and they try to manifest it in what they believe is the morally good way, but in reality a lot of them exhibit actions that would result in them being called what is known as a pedophile. So obviously there seems to be some sort of sick imagery that they've got going on with that. And what I'm trying to say is that they obviously do not care about kids at all. They arrested a 5-year-old and threw them in God knows what camp. We're seeing there was the leaked footage of the ICE facility in Baltimore where there are, and the distinction of citizen does not matter anymore, and that's going to get into a broader point. I mean, it does, but it's going to increasingly not matter, because I want to try and figure out what the trajectory is of this. And I think that people are effectively resisting right off the bat, which is absolutely incredible for how much just shit people have been through in the US. And I know if anyone else is listening in the rest of the world, you have every right to just laugh at oh, okay, you had a protest and you finally got off your ass and did something. You're 1,000,000% right. I've been trying. A lot of millions of Americans have been trying, and tens of millions for a long time, and it's been a constant struggle, and it's not going to get aired out in the media as much, but this is just a particular case that this cannot be ignored. But the struggle against police violence, the struggle against capitalist exploitation and even just blatant wage theft, the um, struggle against imperialism that is tied into that, because we are gathering tactics on counterinsurgency through the mass murder and genocide of what the United States deems as non-people, as a way to then test and turn that complex back on the United States in designing its own police forces, utilizing police tactics, setting up its prison industrial complex, performing surveillance on its own population more effectively, infiltrating potential points of insurgency more effectively, which is basically the... And here's another thing, everyone is calling ICE the Gestapo. The more correct distinction is ICE is the SA, the blatant stormtroopers, but it's the FBI that's been the Gestapo for quite some time, with if lest we forget COINTELPRO, where during a very revolutionary period, pre-revolutionary period, or at least stirrings were going on during the mid-20th century, they systematically murdered black radical political organizers, and radical's the wrong word, let's just call them leftist, communist political organizers that did not fall within the acceptable confines of white supremacist capitalist hegemony. They were murdered, just oftentimes, and primarily by the FBI, with this project started up by the infamous J. Edgar Hoover. And they were performing the kidnapping operations out in Portland in unmarked vans for people that were supporting Black Lives Matter, that when everything was really kicking off after the murder of George Floyd. And to bring it back to Minneapolis, and to bring it back to all law enforcement and all U.S. military that are murdering innocent men, women, and children abroad by the millions, if you can even scratch the surface of what's publicly available of U.S. atrocities done at the behest of U.S.-based multinational corporations and financial institutions, but at the behest of, what can you call them? The global north, Western world, NATO, and don't get it twisted. They'll make it seem like people are on different teams, and people are abandoning the U.S., thank God. The U.S. is a cancer, okay? This place, this land, the people that are in it, you can see in Minnesota, you can see in resistance in New York, you can see in resistance in LA, you can see in resistance and protests and people actually starting parallel societies in terms of mutual aid outside of the confines of U.S. bureaucratic systems that are designed to make them beg for any sort of basic assistance and make them feel like a piece of crap for just asking for a little bit of help in a landscape that has just been deindustrialized into rust of just rust hell, because the logic of, again, capitalism, once other countries reached a point of industrial development that U.S. multinational corporations were comfortable with sending their operations overseas. They were like, oh, we don't have to deal with, they had a deal with major labor unions that are actually, believe it or not, like starting to get better again, but were rancid pretty much after the AFL-CIO, which is now the AFL-CIA at this point. That used to, well, the CIO on its own used to be the best labor union in the country before it was destroyed by basically the Second Red Scare and McCarthyism and the Taft-Hartley Act, which has really massacred the labor movement since the mid-20th century. And people are having a just mass resurged interest, a mass resurgence in interest in alternative methods of political organizing outside of just, frankly, the paint by numbers spectator garbage that we have had in the past. Politics has been, for most Americans that have just operated as your traditional liberal political subject, is to fill out a multiple choice quiz, maybe once a year, but usually only once every 2, and some people just do it during the presidential election. And it's choosing a different flavor of M&M. And the joke is, it's the same flavor, it's a different color. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I just want to put everything into perspective as well, on things were going to get bad no matter what. I don't know if this is exponentially worse than what would happen under Kamala Harris, who was saying we also needed to increase deportations, essentially, and also to further solidify ties with Zionism. She was trying to basically capture what in the United States is the mythical, good moral conservative, which is obviously it's not possible. It's a paradox. You cannot be someone with a conscience that wants to take us back to values where we had open white supremacy. Now it's just a little bit more hidden, but obviously not really the case. They're just kind of flaunting it again, They got a little more crafty at it for a while, but now they're getting lazy. They're getting sloppy. The machinery is kind of starting to corrode a little bit, so they're looking as ghoulish as they've always been, but just slobbering psychopaths instead of quiet, dead-eyed psychopaths. That's the aesthetic that I'm talking about. And to take it back to Minnesota, like I said, local Minneapolis PD has been assisting ICE. There was that photo op, little video op of, hey, the National Guard, we're handing out coffee and donuts to the folks around here. Really? Yeah. Thank you, I'll take coffee and donut, but why aren't you guys, if you're really defending us, I would rather that you, if an ICE person is about to kidnap somebody, maybe be like, please drop your weapon and step away from that innocent human being that's being abducted. Where have they been defending anybody? And people get swindled by the photo op of, oh, yeah, it was so cold and they were out there helping people out. And it's just like, no, don't. I know that people are just, they just want the madness to end, but look, you cannot miss the bigger picture here, that where have they been on meaningfully protecting you? And same with, I am waiting for a little bit more consequential follow through, I guess, of apparently the Black Panther Party is back, but I've seen that apparently they have been marching, and no, some of them nobody has any clue what, like, who some of these people who are claiming to be Black Panther Party are. Um, uh, to be clear, this is definitely something that the Black Panther Party would support, defending people for, but what is being advocated for with this, and why are ICE is still able to kidnap people? Ultimately, like, they do the little walks through when everything's chill, and then they're not there to stick around when things are actually getting serious. And to bring it around to other hotspots where the National Guard has been called in, they were helping ICE out in LA. So, and they've been helping ICE in Memphis. There's, and it's just crazy that you can say that there's video evidence of this, and we've reached a point where some people just will not believe you. And if that's the reality that they're a part of, I don't know. I that's just, we have an irreconcilable perspective of events here. There's not a common thread of a consistent view of the material world that allow us to have anything approaching a half-decent conversation. So at that point, what do? You just try to meet the people and organize with the people around you that aren't fully on board yet, but have seen the cruelty, are appalled, and are scrambling for answers, and are feeling scared. But this isn't the time to just say that these are the end times. Because what does end times actually mean? Does it really mean the end of us as a species? Very well could be. That would be very sad. Because I don't know if there are people in this world that enjoy the company of other human beings still, and have enjoyed the amazing accomplishments that are part and parcel with our species, as well as the horrifying, planet-destroying atrocities that we are able to commit as well. For the people that do want a little bit more of the former to exist in the world and believes that it can, well, thankfully, people are seeing that more and more. This is just ripping everything off, because this is what's been happening quietly under both Republican and Democratic administrations since uh, colonial police were being established, when the color hierarchy was being employed in uh, in pre Declaration of Independence U.S., when it was just the colonies and they hadn't separated. Again, we call them colonies, and people are like, "No, this is a land of freedom." No, you're colonialism. I don't know. Well, I do. It's called cognitive dissonance, but with and just societal wide gaslighting in the United States. But there is no distinction between different types of police. They are a part of the same system that is oppressing you. You hate this government. Why are you expecting some elements of it to really be on your side? The only things that you have had on your side are, let's look at the general strike participants, the people that are actually boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning against the Zionist occupation of Palestine and the genocide going on over there. Who are the people that are standing up? Well, it's people at the grassroots. It's people in organizations like DSA and local mutual aid and type organizations and co-ops and tenant unions that exist in places like Minneapolis. And more than anything, what we're seeing is just people recognizing fundamentally that they are completely alienated from this state. And it's because they love their neighbors regardless of what they look like, more than the manufactured faux patriotic, we'll call it jingoistic garbage that the U.S. pumps out to brainwash people to become baby killers and pigs on behalf of U.S. multinational corporations and financial institutions and the state apparatus. That is the basis for all of the private property laws that allow those entities to exist in the first place. So, what we need to do is, with that grassroots organizing of the neighbors, and what banners was everybody coming under? Those grassroots organizers basically dragged the, I mentioned them earlier, the AFL-CIA into forcing a general strike. There were so many other collective smaller unions and those co-ops, tenant unions, mutual aid orgs, and just regular people that are done, and they don't fully, a lot of people are just still blinded by being an American, and they need to fully grasp that the system in total needs to be dismantled. And it's important for people to fully call out police and National Guard. And remember, in Los Angeles, they sent Marines in there. People need to turn. This is one of the fundamental false gods that the U.S. bourgeoisie has propped up as an idol for people to worship, and it is the fetishization of U.S. empire in protecting human rights. And anyone that has a functioning brain now, including most Americans, understands that it's not in the name of freedom. They get tricked from time to time, unfortunately, stupidly, that, oh, wait, we're supposed to be a democracy. We have the Constitution. You know, that's the kind of chintzy garbage that people still are hanging on to. And I have to, just based on my experience of just getting a sense of what people are feeling, and what lack of confidence both in the government and economy that people are expressing in polling data. It's just, we're at a point where people know that the trappings are just window dressing for naked brutality everywhere. It's hard for them to wrap their minds around just how evil the United States is, and people have a hard time reconciling their existence here. I'm ashamed every single day. That I'm not gonna let that shame's not enough though. You need to fight to overthrow the system that is actively oppressing you and everyone that is not in the bourgeois ruling class, which is international. They made a collective, basically blood sacrifice agreement to let the people of Palestine be genocided again and again, and they're still doing it even after a fake ceasefire. They're the most righteous people on earth, and you know where some of these thugs that are terrorizing people in the streets receive their training? From the Israeli occupation forces. So it's all interconnected, all of these struggles. And you know where local police receive their training? Israeli occupation forces. Those tactics are being used on you by everybody, and nobody in those institutions is coming to save you. And people are, I wish it didn't have to come through actually having just, acts of cruelty aired out. I wish it could be abstracted, and people would just understand it. But we have been heavily brainwashed here, obviously, and people have a right to be angry about how just ignorant we've been, how it's gotten to this point. And we owe it to them, and we owe it most of all to the Palestinian people, but also to ourselves here, and to every single country that this monstrous entity, US Inc., has terrorized, Murder Inc., just in nation-state form instead of the mob. The U.S. is just organized crime, and it's becoming more just not just disorganized crime. I mean, international law is basically just the organized crime cartel structure at this point, is what it's looking like to benefit the United States and whoever its vassals were formerly. But in a world that's rapidly changing geopolitically, in a world where people are having absolutely massive shifts in understanding of what fundamental reinventing of what social relations amongst human beings can be, in a time of where we're past the point of no return with climate change. We've had mass animal species and extinction, mass biome destruction. I believe the Great Barrier Reef is dead at this point. We are in times that make it seem like we are just going to be at the hands of both, natural disasters in terms of that cruelty, and the cruelty of human beings that have leaned into coping with reality by by embracing a false consciousness that says that, in spite of their complete lack of integrity and principles, that they are actually a decent person as long as they can win by eliminating the other side. And we need to keep fighting against all of it, because I'll close on this. There was an interview that the esteemed governor, Tim Walz, gave to somebody. And as we know, as of today, again, January 28th, Greg Bovino, that bleeding cow, bovine, he's that wannabe SS officer, has finally been given the fuck off from the administration, the regime. Sorry, I don't want to give him any sort of dignity with that title, but let me just confirm who he's being. Yeah, so he's gonna end up being replaced by Thomas Homan, who was a part of, and again, this all ties into every single party is bad, every single law enforcement agency is bad, and it's always been like that. The only way forward is a workers-based party around grassroots and union organizing, and mutual aid. And Tom Homan was, I believe, was he the head of ICE? Oh, and he's the border czar for Donald Trump. So still just a racist piece of garbage. And under Obama, he was awarded, I believe, it's just a disgusting, sick joke at this point. I believe the Medal of Freedom for his mass deportation work. People forget that Obama deported even more people than rabid psycho, warmonger, mass genocider, criminal George W. Bush. Obama gives this guy a Medal of Freedom for deporting more people and boosting his numbers more. This is what the Democrats want. This is what they want to do with applying supposedly more professional local law enforcement and bringing in pigs like Tom Homan, who are supposedly more professional, aka quiet and better at disappearing people in the middle of the night before we can even have a chance to mobilize against them. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, said that Tom Homan, who also, besides being a piece of shit, was also caught in an FBI sting operation, accepting a bribe. I think it was for like $50K. It might have been $100K. I can't remember. But he's just openly a corrupt piece of shit. And Tim Walz says, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. So the guy that's appointed as the current racist border patrol head in the current administration, who is now the I guess new head of ICE at this point, or maybe head of DHS. Is there there is a distinction, I guess, because TSA is under DHS, but he's basically saying this openly corrupt guy that took bribe money and has been awarded for destroying more people's lives than even the beginning of the ICE regime under the Bush administration. That's the guy that you think is going to protect the constituents of your state. You're a traitor. And he was also endorsing the fact that he's more professional. More professional means better at shutting down protesters, at silencing your voice. This is the guy that didn't hold back during the George Floyd protests when he was governor and let Minneapolis PD run wild on people. The Democrats are not your friends. Local law enforcement is not your friend. The National Guard is not your friend. The military is not your friend. You cannot trust a single institution that says they are upholding the law. The law is designed to make you defenseless at this point. The only thing that can defend you, and we are seeing this, we've been seeing this for a while, but things are just getting more intense and boiling up more, is getting organized with people that you know around you, block by block, to be able to warn each other that, hey, they're coming to snatch people, and you scream and holler at the top of your lungs. People have shown beyond insane restraint to the point where other people are getting frustrated with the fact probably that people aren't reacting more violently to ICE. People rightfully don't want to just, get shot down like a dog, There are ways to resist and get them to go. And the pressure is working, and it worked through the general strike. That's why you need to get organized, because the only two things that these psychopaths listen to are the jingling of coins in their pocket and an ASMR of bullets hitting a soft target in order to fall asleep. Those are the only two things that people like this love. And when you're hitting their wallets that hard, and when you are causing them to reach a point that they need to reconsider their tactics completely, maybe even abandon their deployment, and if this thing keeps getting pushed, maybe even fundamentally change the Minneapolis PD, which could be the springboard for broader changes elsewhere. Even though he's, just kind of a sock dem lib, Zoran Mamdani says the right things to at least, and he has the name of a democratic socialist. He is not a democratic socialist. He is a liberal. But at this point, the fact that people are just like, I like the fact that he calls himself a democratic socialist. Well, yeah, it's not even him winning that's meaningful. Although it does give, like, it was a very necessary message to the rest of the world of, like, there is, like, a absolutely, like, very tiny dot of light that it exists as a ray of hope, a little peephole ray of hope that the U.S. has to be able to rise up against its own tyranny, both against its own citizens as well as a million times over, literally against the rest of the world, horrifyingly against the rest of the world. And I'm glad that the national solidarity is coming in from people that they just need the madness from the United States to stop. 1,000,000% agree, and it's beautiful that Donald Trump is the most hated person in the world right now. But we've got to keep pushing, and the key to beating them has been to bring back organized labor, and Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically, is starting to do it from the ground up. And that's what's starting to go on everywhere. There was a massive nurses union strike in New York City. There was obviously the general strike in Minneapolis. By the way, general strike January 30th. Don't miss it. Hope to see you online, not working. Or offline and not working in which case I wouldn't see you, but have a good time not working. Go to a protest. Go on some Signal chats. Join DSA. They'll let you know of any protests that are going to be coming nearby. They'll keep you in the loop on all of that stuff. You can link up with people. You'll start entering some Signal chats to be able to get a little bit more organized, a little bit more correct. And from there, we all are going to be figuring out in these turbulent times what exactly is my role in the grand scheme of things of being able to try to help us advance into a fundamentally new age of, like I said, social relations, which is basically the sum of what the economy is, which at its base is managing the control of the production and distribution of articles, and if that distribution mechanism is a market, the distribution of commodities in exchange for either other commodities or other commodities embodied as money. So, which is the completely alienable, transferable, recognized form of a commodity is its symbol expressed as money and as prices. That's another mechanism. Doesn't really have to be that way. We have the technology now that we could completely map out, ensuring that everyone has all of their basic needs on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs organized around distributing productive resources in the most efficient way possible through a global network map that we could leverage with, even just basic linear programming. But we have AI. Shouldn't abuse AI because it's going to destroy all of our fresh drinking water. But yeah. Before I lose the thread again there, what I really want to say is just keep up the pressure. I need to brush up on a IWW, how to organize a union, start up a union guide that was the Wobblies, as they were also called. They were a force to be reckoned with at the beginning of the 20th century, and had some good actual, you know, tactical organization methods that would still be effective today. So I need to brush up on that guide, and just figure out, maybe where you work, maybe there is maybe you know a couple of people that might be a little sympathetic, that even if you don't get the union started, just be like, if we can't get started here, maybe we can, join DSA, or maybe we can join, the reform movement of UAW, which my understanding actually has a few decent locals. So, including that, a local that was organizing with Columbia University during um, the crackdowns on the pro-Palestine protests that were going on there in earnest. And by the way, people are still saying Free Palestine. Don't ever forget that. Always. Always. And I think that's about all I have to say on that. It's just, it doesn't stop with ICE. It needs to be the entire apparatus. The United States, its allies, which are essentially, finance colonies since World War I, when they destroyed each other out of self-preservation against proletarian revolution during World War I. They would rather sacrifice tens of millions. And in the grand cumulative scheme of the short, at max 500 years capitalism's been around, the just hundreds of millions of people that have expired at the mercy of a system that, and not at the mercy, you can't even beg here, because they treat you as weak for asking for any sort of help under capitalism. But the system, for that short amount of time, has killed that many people. And in the grand scheme of things, people, the primary mode of organization for human beings before we reached a certain level of socialization and technological development was as a cooperative species. It's within everything that we are able to do as far as interacting with each other is something that can come about through socialization. It's not something that is this baked into your genes. The definition of what a human being is, both ideally and how it interacts with the material world, what it even materially looks like, is an extremely malleable concept. It's we're seeing in real time a vast shift in, and divergence as well, in two directions of what people deem to be acceptable in this world. And I am the only, because I know that everything is very disorganized still, and not the only thing. There are other things that give me hope too. But the main thing that does give me hope is that you can tell that by and large, it is the majority of the world that is done with the international system of exploitation, primarily undergirded by the United States and its allies, but also tacitly supported by countries like BRICS countries that benefit from engaging in international finance capital themselves, there's no salvation from the ruling class of any place anymore. And as paradoxical as it seems, the big bad, the United States, which is still the big bad, with the rate of deterioration that it's heading at, and if we keep up the struggle, this could end up being fertile ground for something bigger. And we're already seeing it in places like Nepal. We have been, I believe that was the main, I guess, sort of youth revolution that's been going on. Apologies, I thought there was another one that was going on in Southeast Asia, and I know that's not Southeast Asia, that's more South Asia, apologies. That was an American moment there, my bad, folks. But there is a just mass awakening in people. Just they know that the way things have been cannot continue without our complete and utter self-destruction. And we will defeat the tech oligarchs. We will defeat the more behind the scenes movers of hedge fund money and growers of the portfolios of the sadistic and exorbitantly wealthy ruling class of the entire world, embedded in multinational corporations, militaries, prisons, pharmaceutical companies, corrupt, bureaucratic apparatuses within each of their respective countries and outside of them, such as the World Bank and IMF. These are all things that are designed to maintain the orthodoxy of, again, primarily U.S. undergirded international finance capital. That is starting to change, but that even the U.S. going away, if the U.S. does go away, what if what appears at the ground zero of that? What if that ends up being the beginning of something new? Wouldn't that be poetic? Anyone who's trapped in the United States in these god-awful times, and first off, let me just say again, apologies to the rest of the world. I know this place maybe doesn't even deserve any sort of redemption for what it's done. And I would understand if you blame us. Just know that there are people that have been fighting every step of the way and are just racked with pain and disgust at what this evil entity is capable of and has been trying and unfortunately failing to stop this murder machine. But people here are just at a point where they don't care if you live anymore. Things are not good for Americans. And like I said, if people from abroad aren't sympathetic to that, you have to understand this country's done horrible things to pretty much everybody all over the world. And even if it's not directly your fault, we're all part of history. Whether we have that much to do with moving the threads of it directly or not. And we just need to show, the only thing that we can do to try and earn forgiveness is to fight back and maybe maybe we have a chance to really fundamentally transform the United States. But, and this is the problem with the struggle, but I think it can, now that people are, I, I know that again, the world abroad, they think it's pathetic, but people are have been activated in a way that have not been activated in, quite some time. There was the lull since Sanders betrayed the grassroots campaign that propped him up. But it is resurged and it's getting stronger. And with the labor market recession that's going on, and with repo markets not looking good, with the U.S. Federal Reserve continuing to buy securities because there's no way that they could fucking sell them, so that they can engage in quantitative easing. There's nothing here for anybody anymore, and people are finally like waking up and realizing that the machinery was never on their side. I'm trying to be patient with them. I've tried to educate every single day. Um, Everyone else in the world has been beyond patient with us. But like the main thread of this whole thing was, we are going to continue to push to undermine the totality of the whole machine, rather than just go after a bunch of armed fat goons. No, that is just skimming the surface of, again, the level of police violence, violence against the labor movement, violence against marginalized people based on their race, sex, socioeconomic status, sexual proclivities, religious beliefs. It's the land of the free discriminates in every single way, and in a lot of ways, it maybe potentially tries to have those things continue to be propped up to create artificial barriers to getting to know one another. But people here are starting to finally grasp that all we have is each other and ACAB.